Hello and welcome to the Real Travel Show, where we take you on an exciting journey of fascinating places around the world. Invite your friends. Be my guest on this weekly journey around the world. Discover the food. Oh yes, my friend. The music, arts, culture, and the magical sights and sounds. Welcome to the Real Travel Show with me, yours truly, Ras Mubarak. And you, my friend, are very welcome. Welcome to the Real Travel Show, a program that brings you all the excitements from countries around the world. We normally look at the sights, the sounds, opportunities, business-wise, education, and even cultural. And our program is sponsored by Bill's Lounge in Eastwood City, the Philippines, Askai Airlines, the Pan-African Airlines. My name is Ras Mubarak. We're on DSTV. We're on YouTube, we are on Facebook. We're going to embark on a journey, an exciting one indeed, to the 6th largest country in the world. It might sound a bit far, but there's a lot of fascinating stuff ahead on the Real Travel Show. But not before we speak to the High Commissioner of this wonderful country. She's High Commissioner with a mandate overseeing the interest of Australia for 9 West African countries, namely Mali, Senegal, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Togo, and obviously Ghana. High Commissioner Berenice Owen-Jones is my guest on the Real Travel Show. It's good to see you, ma'am.
Very pleased to meet you, and thank you for that kind introduction. You did a very good job remembering all the countries I cover. Well done.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting us to the High Commission. You've got quite a lot of work, 9 countries.
That's right, it keeps me busy, and I travel quite a bit, as you can imagine.
Okay. And have you had time to visit all of these countries?
I've probably visited half of those countries because as the High Commissioner or Ambassador designate to those countries, I need to present credentials to the President of each individual country, and I've only done that for about half. So there's more to discover still. Okay.
You were in Morocco, in the north of Africa, different climates. You're now in the West, overseeing 9 countries. Which would you say is most exciting? And of course, you were in France as well.
Yes.
As the first secretary?
Yes, and I was posted France more recently as well. The common link between the 2 postings is that I'm also Francophone. And obviously I used my French a lot in Morocco. And in the countries that I cover, many of them are Francophone. So that's the link. And I think... I know that I wanted to go back to Africa when I was in Morocco and explore the continent a bit more, and I got my wish.
Interesting. Have you had time to sample the cuisine?
Yes, so I've been here long enough to know that I probably shouldn't start comparing jollofs across different countries in the region, so we won't go there. But yes, I've really enjoyed the local cuisine in Ghana. I've had red and plantain for lunch. Delicious, and quite good for you, I think.
Okay. How about the other West African countries? Which have you visited, by the way, to present your credentials?
So I've been to Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Sierra Leone up until now.
Okay. And in those countries, you've had, your credentials accepted?
Yes.
Okay.
And now I can go back as the ambassador.
Okay. How does it work? Is it that you spend a month in Ghana and then another month in another country?
Well, I try to go back after I've presented credentials. I probably go back to, depending on the extent of our interests in those countries, I probably try and go back at least once or twice a year.
Okay.
Depending on what's going on. So yes, that's quite a lot of work.
Okay.
But it's very rewarding.
let's talk about, Australia's relationship with Ghana. It dates back to 1958.
Yes.
65 years on. How would you characterize or describe the relationship?
Well, you're quite right. It's a long-standing relationship. Australia was one of the first countries to open a mission after Ghana's independence, so very early on. The relationship is got a very solid basis, underpinned by our Commonwealth links, our people-to-people links to now almost 10,000 Ghanaians call Australia home. And also we have shared values, and that helps us work in multilateral forums, but also bilaterally. The relationship has depth. That's what I want to say. And there's no bilateral irritants. It's an easy relationship. We have a lot in common, and there are many areas of potential collaboration, bilaterally and multilaterally.
And distance hasn't been a hindrance?
No, so that's my job. My job is to try and overcome what I call the tyranny of distance.
Okay.
It does mean, of course, that official visits in both directions are probably rarer than there would be between Ghana and a European country, but when they happen, we make them count. Okay.
And which aspect of our relationship? I'm a bit biased for Ghana. I mean, even though you are overseeing 8 other countries, but because you are resident in Ghana, so let me focus on Ghana a bit.
Yes.
Which aspect of the relationship would you like to see strengthened as far as Ghana is concerned?
Well, first of all, I should say that when we were talking about the depth of relationship, it's also underpinned by very strong commercial links. Okay. We have important mining interest here in Ghana. And indeed, you'll find Australian mining in every aspects of the extractive sector in Ghana, from exploration to excavation, drilling, mining services. And I'm very pleased with the contribution we've made to Ghana's economy through royalties, but also to the socioeconomic development of the country through that very substantial direct investment in Ghana's extractive industry. And there's a transfer of skill and knowledge that goes on as well, and
which
capacity
is very critical,
building. That's right.
Especially in the mining sector.
Yes, and it's actually a good story to tell, because Australia has very sound environmental and social mining practices. We're very proud of that. And we've made a contribution to developing Ghana's extractive sector as well. For example, as a big Australian company involved in the first lithium mine in Ghana. So it's not just gold, it's also the critical minerals. Okay. So that's an exciting journey to be on. So I should have said that from the outset. Beyond mining, I think there's scope for, to answer your question, where would I like to focus, see a greater focus? I think we should be exploring other sectors as well. And in fact, in October this year, there'll be the inaugural Australia-Africa Business Summit. I'm very pleased to say the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will be attending. Okay. And we'll be looking at what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will mean in terms of investment for Australian business. And we'll be looking at opportunities across all sectors. And there are sectors where Australia has cutting-edge expertise, so that's agricultural technology, environmental technologies, renewable energy, construction, and education. So there's sectors that I really feel as though we could do a lot more. Education is also has a lot has potential.
It's an exciting destination for English-speaking West Africans.
That's right. And I know it's a long way away, but Australian universities are consistently ranked in there's always 3 or 4 universities in the top 20. Yeah. And this is, don't take my word for it. You can check the indices, the QS and the the Shanghai Index. And 95% of Australian universities are ranked. And we're also very, very good on vocational education
Technical
as well.
education.
So there are many thousands of tertiary institutions. And so I'd like to see more of a focus on education. We have a trade promotion office in the High Commission. I'm pointing in that direction because the office is just there. And they do a lot of promotion.
Okay.
They bring university, tertiary institutions to Ghana to showcase what they can do. So I think that's got a lot of potential.
Okay. Arts and culture.
Arts and culture, but there's also another element of the relationship. So I mentioned that mining makes a contribution to the socioeconomic development of Ghana, but we also do it through a development program. It's we call it a direct aid program. It's a small grants program, and it's very focused on the needs of the community at a grassroots level.
Okay.
And over the last 2 decades, we've probably had about 200 roughly such programs focusing on sectors as diverse as female empowerment, economic empowerment, renewable energy, income generation, human rights. And I think that these projects have tangible benefits for the community. So that's another aspect of the relationship. So we've talked about the work we do in multilateral fora on big challenges to the international rule-based order, climate change, and we that's that I started off talking about that because that's in recognition of Ghana's very influential voice in international forums, including, for example, at the moment as the chair of the Security Council. So I started off talking about that. And then bilaterally, we do a lot of good work as well on difficult topics like counterterrorism. And then I talked about the commercial relationship and finally development.
Yeah. And Australia is quite big on issues like climate change. Not just in your region, in the region where Australia is located, but globally, looking at meeting some of the targets that have been set by the watchers of issues of climate,
and the UNFCCC, of course.
Absolutely, especially judging by where Australia is located as well, and impact of climate change on countries such as Ghana, Guinea, and the rest of it. And it's quite exciting hearing that you're sharing some expertise.
That's right,
in those areas
we're
as
keen
well.
to reinvigorate our relationship with Ghana and other countries in the region to address these challenges. So I see that as another potential and exciting future for the relationship.
Okay. How about boxing? Perhaps Ghana could teach Australia a thing or two. I mean, we've got Bukom.
Yes.
Where Azuma Nelson, the great legend, trained. Everybody knows Bukom is, and for our international viewers, Bukom is a suburb of Accra. Is notorious for producing a lot of interesting boxing champions like Ikote and Azuma Nelson. Perhaps it's something that Australia could also pick a lesson or two from.
I know the match you're referring to. That
Azuma versus Jeff Finich.
Yes, so that was in March 1992.
Yeah.
And I think for fans, it was a big moment in boxing history. There were two boxing greats at their finest.
Yeah.
And I know the results are a little bit controversial. I know the World Boxing Council has come up with a recent decision, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from the extraordinary career of these two boxers. I had the privilege of meeting Azuma Nelson recently, actually.
Interesting.
Very impressive man, very humble as well.
Absolutely. Hello and welcome to the Real Travel Show, where we take you on an exciting journey of fascinating places around the world. Invite your friends. Be my guest on this weekly journey around the world. Discover the food. Oh yes, my friend. The music, arts, culture, and the magical sights and sounds. Welcome to the Real Travel Show with me, yours truly, Ras Mubarak, and you, my friend, are very welcome.
We gain altitude and take an unlimited look at Africa. This is an ideal way for us to bring together our people, our cultures, by erasing borders to promote bilateral cooperation, tourism, and business. By extending our wings across the African sky, we embark you and transport you in one day on our network, the quality of services, the reliability of our flight program, and our professionalism are values that define us. We are Sky, the Pan-African airline.
And aside what Australia is bringing on board to these 9 West African countries in terms of sharing expertise, what are they sharing with you? What is Ghana sharing with Australia?
In terms of trades and goods and services, that's valued at about 450 million. So but that understates, I feel, the commercial relationship, which is mainly about investment. But you mentioned the other countries in the region. If I can just touch upon a little bit what I do in those other countries. So the extractive sector is also a focus in all the countries we listed at the beginning of the interview. To give you an idea of Australia's mining footprint in the region, it's been estimated about $30 billion. And there are big projects in a country like Guinea, for instance. There's the Simandou iron ore mine. It's the largest untapped high-grade iron ore mine in the world, and there's a big Australian company involved in that. And it's a nation-building project for Guinea.
That's
obviously we're part of a bigger joint venture. Mali, another lithium mine, gold. So that's all through the region. In Senegal, it's oil and gas offshore. So they're big projects. In some of those countries, security is a concern, and we share with, you asked about cooperation with Ghana, we share Ghana's concern about the potential spillover effects of terrorism, jihadist movements into coastal states. So we work with Ghana, but we try and work on capacity building. We fund an international counterterrorism academy in Côte d'Ivoire, and also through the UN Counterterrorism Office. Our direct aid projects also we also cover the region. So that's quite a bit of work. And we also provide core funding to multilateral aid, usually UN agencies. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was very pleased to hear that Australia will be contributing $2.61 million towards the World Food Program, Resilience Building Program for states around the Gulf of Guinea, including in my patch, Togo, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire. So that's very good news, and that's to help with sustainable agriculture and rehabilitate the fertility of the land. And this for us it's important because it's about addressing the grassroots problems that can lead to insecurity. So we do that at a grassroots level. It's not just about counterterrorism, it's also about countering violent extremism and also addressing the socioeconomic needs in the communities. So that's a lot of work in West Africa.
Okay, and finally on the bit about trade, what would you say has accounted for the lower trade volumes? Is it because of the distance? I mean, would people interested in trading, for instance, consider Europe as a much cheaper destination compared to Australia. Would this be the reason why the trade
Yes,
volume is not too?
absolutely. I mean, there's no surprise. It's no surprise that trading partners that are close to each other trade more. I mean, if you look, we were talking about iron ore before. Iron ore is a product with that's got a high weight to value ratio, so the transport costs per ton are very high.
Okay.
Similarly with gas, expensive storage, expensive transport. So no surprises there. But it's not all bad news for Australia, because if you look at where we're located, relatively close in the Indo-Pacific region to the big economic powerhouses of the region.
Absolutely.
And they're taking our natural resources, they're taking our iron ore, our oil and gas.
Okay.
And that means that our economy's performed consistently well for a number of years now, one of the highest performing economies in the OECD.
Okay.
And yeah, that's a bit of luck, I've got to say, because we've got the natural resources and we've got that location as well.
Yeah. Many of the countries that you have diplomatic jurisdiction over,
Yes.
If you look at your sheep population, for instance, they outstrip the number of humans who are in Australia. Australia's population is about 27 million.
Correct, yes.
You've got more than 78 million sheep in Australia. What do I do with all of those?
So it's an interesting story. The sheep came, they were the first domesticated animals to be brought to Australia on the ships that came to colonise Australia. So they were there from the start, and particularly in the south of the country where it's a bit cooler, they did very well. So yes, I think now it's about, the flock's about 64 million actually. I don't know why it's gone down a little bit. But yes, we're very well known for the quality of our lamb, but also the wool.
Yeah.
Very well known for very high quality wool, and also live sheep exports.
And is this an area that, you know, Australia could be looking at in terms of sharing know-how with Ghana, with Togo, with Liberia, Sierra Leone, and others?
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, obviously it's quite capital intensive, because you need the shearing sheds, you need access to water, but there are certain practices that Australia we could share some knowledge on, and that's to do with animal traceability, the health of the animals. We've got this sort of super breed of sheep that don't get foot and mouth disease, for instance. And that's because we've got scientific practices that seem to work for the sheep.
Okay, all right. If anyone is just joining us, this is the Real Travel Show. My guest on the program is Her Excellency Berenice Owen-Jones, High Commissioner of Australia, resident in Ghana, and she's got credentials designated to Togo, to Burkina Faso, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and Mali and Senegal. And we've spoken extensively about how tedious that could be, traveling to and fro. We've looked at trade, you know, and what Australia's interest is in the region in terms of enhancing the relationship with these countries. As we draw closer to the end of our interview, I'd like to touch on a couple of things. One, education. You did mention that a bit earlier. What's the number of scholarships, for instance, that you have awarded?
Yes.
Or are available annually to, say, Ghanaian students or Togolese or Burkinabes?
Yep. And so we have an Australian Awards program, so it's quite a prestigious scholarship program. And over the last decades, we've targeted some of the best and the brightest around the region to go and study or undertake research in our premier educational institutions. And I see it as, for Ghana, for instance, an important part of our bilateral relations, because we learn from each other that way, and we form those people-to-people links. We transfer knowledge, And then when the students come back from Australia, they form an alumni group, and they often they go back and they become decision makers. So for us, it's invaluable to have that network. So I see it as a very important part of our people-to-people links and our public diplomacy. So we're continuing with them. And at the moment, we're focused on masters. So
so it's not open to undergrads, only for master's students?
At the moment,
okay.
Masters.
And PhD?
Yes, and short courses as well.
Okay.
So we're going to advertise short courses shortly.
Okay.
PhDs not so much at the moment.
Okay.
But I would, if you're interested, I would recommend you keep an eye on the Australian High Commission in Ghana social media.
Okay.
And
okay.
our website. Okay. So it's a very good program, and it's across the region.
Okay, okay. And just to pick up on what you just said, for the website, for the benefit of viewers, what's the web address?
So it's Australian High Commission in Ghana.
Okay, on social media.
On social media.
Okay. And migration, is Australia open?
Yes. So for migration, for migration. There are different categories of migrants, and you've got to fulfil a particular criteria.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Keep watching the Real Travel Show. Hello and welcome to the Real Travel Show, where we take you on an exciting journey of fascinating places around the world. Invite your friends. Be my guest on this weekly journey around the world. Discover the food. Oh yes, my friend. The music, arts, culture, and the magical sights and sounds. Welcome to the Real Travel Show with me, yours truly, Ras Mubarak, and you, my friend, are very welcome.
We gain altitude and take an unlimited look at Africa. This is an ideal way for us to bring together our people, our cultures, by erasing borders to promote bilateral cooperation, tourism and business. By extending our wings across the African sky, we embark you and transport you in one day on our network, the quality of services, the reliability of our flight program, and our professionalism are values that define us. We are a Sky, the Pan-African Airline.